everyone. Welcome to another episode of AI Amigos show. My name is Marina, and I am very happy to share another fun and great conversation with my two friends, Xian Chao and James. Guys, thanks for being here.
Yeah, glad to be
Hey
back.
everyone, hey Marina.
So, DeepSeek, and it's a big topic. People are still talking about them and about the company and whether this is actually better or not than OpenAI and Mixtral and Llama and everything that is, in the market. And we decided to actually bring a very interesting topic that is what is the approach that they are using that is so different, why it costs less, and if it eventually can be more efficient because of that. James, maybe you want to break the ice on this one.
Well, thank you, Marina. One of the things that they're using that I saw that's very different is they're using reinforcement learning. And when I did my master's thesis, it was on reinforcement learning. And so it is a very interesting topic. And I think that what differentiates reinforcement learning from other models is that it's the way we learn as humans, meaning like, if we do something good, we get a reward. And if we don't, we get punished. So you kind of think, well, how does a computer get rewarded and how does it get punished? Well, we have a thing called a reward function, and that reward function tells the computer when it's doing good and when it's doing bad. And so they're using reinforcement learning as the basis of their model.
So basically, what I see here as well, I studied along with James, as you know. But what they see with the reinforcement learning, and this is the main difference that they can see in comparison to the language models as we know them, is that they work autonomously. So the language models, as we know them, it started with this paper, all you need is attention, or attention is all you need, where you have the encoder, the decoder, then OpenAI, Llama, Gemini, they just remove the encoder, they just go the decoder, they use the semantics, knowledge graph came into place as well. But the good part about the reinforcement learning is that the machine is learning on its own. So then it actually is autonomous. It's like, for example, like kid, when they say, oh, this is wrong, well, I will try again. So then the machine executes, and at a certain point, with all these autonomous interactions, then it gets a better result. So I would say that this is the fact that the reinforcement learning is still here, or I don't know if it actually left eventually, because now everything is about the agents. Everyone is talking about the agents and the agents. And this is what they are talking about. So the agents learn individually, right?
Yeah.
So and I would say, like, this is the main point, and the advantage of this is that the machine will learn from the users. So then, for example, if I add a lot of information, so the machine will know how I react, for example, or how would I answer, and not just because of the data, because of my responses to the answer. If I said, no, I don't want this way, so then the machine understands this as, okay, this is a punishment, it's not a reward, and so on and so forth, right? Do you think that it will actually change the game in the language models?
Well, we're seeing that already, right? I mean, we were talking about that before about, cost. I mean, how much did you say again it was, John, that they invested? DeepSeek? Was it
6 million?
There's saying about 3 million to train the model, or 6. I don't know. But
a very small amount compared to millions? You said millions, not billions?
million.
Million.
Not even double digits. It's definitely single digits.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say in regards to, like, when you think about reinforcement learning and the reward function, and this is where for me was always a very interesting part, because when you tell it what's good and what's bad, when you think about when we were children, our parents taught us what was good and what's bad, but how did they learn what was good and bad? It could be the culture, society, religion, because obviously we're taught different things. So the thing is that when you look at the reward function, so for example, John and I, we live in Ireland. So we say, okay, so tomorrow when we leave the house in the morning, let's say we're going out to Tesco's and we're leaving the house, do we take the umbrella or do we leave it? So how do we make that decision? How would you make that decision, John? How
I
would you
don't leave
decide
the house. I don't know.
it? Okay. Well, let's say you were to leave the house, Jen. Okay?
I shop
That's
at
it.
Dunks.
Unblock.
Only posh people go to Tesco. I'm the Dunks person. I don't
So you
know. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah. So how would you decide, Jen? I mean, you think about this, right?
Mm,
And with the way you decide it, you say, well, maybe your wife tells you, right? That's like me in
yeah.
my house.
Yeah.
Or you look at the weather, or you look out the window, or you
Or
know,
you
a
check
lot.
your phone and you see the weather, that, and you
Yeah.
say, "Oh, today there are like 30% chances that it would rain."
Yeah.
Or it's Ireland and it's always raining, right? So,
That's-
so you have to decide what is the point, or what is going to make you that decision. And that's the thing, is that you have different factors to make a decision, right?
Hmm.
And that's what works in the function, the reward function there. But then it's like, well, how much importance, how much weighting do you give to each one? And those can change based on certain conditions. So if you think about like trading the stock market, I'm going to trade the markets. Well, what do I make that decision? What are those inputs to give me the output? And the thing about reinforcement learning, it's a decision agent. It doesn't tell you, well, the stock price tomorrow is going to be $50. It tells you buy 20 or sell. And so,
Yeah, but at the same time, so then, of course, everything is about the chances, it's about probabilities, but the language models also work with probabilities. Do you remember that we talk about what happened if you asked ChatGPT to create an image of you, and the first image that the machine created for me was a man?
Hmm.
Because it's like highly likely that in the field of IT there is a man, like, and then I had to say, no, I'm a woman. Oh, I'm sorry for the confusion. I will reshape it. And then it came the image. So the language models, they are still working with probability. There is a kind of probability score, but the difference here is with the reinforcement learning, the machine really stores this information and keeps using it, so it
yeah.
learns on its own.
Yeah, so it has what you have what's called the environment, and then you have a state, and there you have an action. And what it does, and it will create what's called a Q table, which it has each action and what are the probabilities to get to the highest reward. And so, when you think about that, it's if you think about, like, there's a reinforcement learning, for like you were talking about Ina earlier, that makes, well, how does it Marina make how do I make Marina happy? Well, that's my reward, to make Marina happy, right? That's what,
Hmm.
as we're saying, the reinforcement learning model does this.
Very hard to accomplish.
Well, I was going to say it'd be harder for Jan to make Jan happy, but I don't know. So I could be wrong. But it then finds out what is the probability of that action that will make you the happiest. So let's say, for example, um, food. So what kind of food? Maybe you say, as we talked before, a sandwich will make you happy, or what would make you a barbecue? Well, yeah, I like barbecues. Anyone here like barbecues?
Yeah.
I like it too. I'm sorry for the vegans, guys, but I like it so much.
So it says, oh, the probability of Marina liking a barbecue is going to be very high, and the reward function then goes. So yeah, and as you said, it contains memory, and that memory of previous actions, as we learn.
But this is actually the main point. And now that the Asians are actually in the game, OpenAI mentioned that in the future they are planning to actually have the Asians as well learn on their own. Uh, I don't know how well it will work. I don't know if they are already testing it, because that sometimes we receive like different answers. So then probably they are testing it. But yes, so I agree 100%. And reinforcement learning is kind of the future. Is coming back to the basis, of AI and machine learning as we know it.
I think those things, especially reinforce learning on the Gen AI stuff, I think is going to the small model into everyone's life, right? As you're training your own one. I think you will have problem if you train a large one. It might have issues like overfitting. You want it to be broad. You don't want to be just for this person, and next 99% doesn't work. I think it's more for people, for each people. They might have a small model or something running for you. You can kind of, do
But
better.
then do you think that the language models will actually change entirely? Because all of them, they are using the decoder part, of the schema. If like I have in mind the schema of the language model, for the original one, the paper from Google. So you have the encoder and the decoder. When the encoder is removed and you have only the decoder, this is what the language models were using so far, until DeepSeek came up with the reinforcement learning. So then, do you think that all the companies will actually switch, or we try to do a combination with that? That is actually my main question, as a futurist question, let's say. Reinforcement learning, we know that it works. We tried in the past. It's not just only for these kind of predictions, but you can use it in different applications of AI. So we are talking a lot about the language model, but what happened with the other applications? They didn't change. So, for example, the autonomous cars, they are still using reinforcement learning. This is something that didn't change.
Yeah, there's a lot of more use cases for reinforcement learning than there are, I think, large language models. I mean, and there are other models that have memory, like if you look at LSTMs and that have long-term, short-term memory. But I think when you look at what's going to be best, and you guys can tell me wrong, it's where the money goes, the capital, what's going to be the cheapest costs. I mean, I think that's why when we see DeepSeek, that it's such a small amount of money, millions instead of billions. And how much energy does it use and consume? And does it need? I think you were talking about this, John, weren't you? About they were using the previous generation of video cards.
Yeah, of
Yes.
course. It's interesting. It might be we might see the kind of like the crypto wall before, like people are mining and going to the jungle to get the hydropower. Maybe in the future, very soon, somebody in the jungle have hydropower training models. You never know.
Well,
Yeah.
we never know, but at the same time, guys, something that I tell you is, okay, they offer something that is cheaper, but they don't have the same capacity as OpenAI, for example, because they invested less as well. So I believe that it's actually connected, because when it was an explosion, everyone was using it, and the server was down for several days until it actually went back to kind of normal. Or I don't know if it is as normal as before in a way. John, maybe you can tell us
No, it's not. It's not.
more.
Any US hours, you're gone. You can still using it in Ireland about early hours. If it's coming to 11 or 12, start the US, start coming on, you have no chance. It's just for errors all the time.
Something that really gets my attention in a way is that there are many advancements in AI. So if we talk about blockchain, decentralized identity, autonomous cars, most of them work with reinforcement learning at some point, but everyone is putting the attention on the language models. Have you realized about that? So it's kind of all of a sudden AI is just knowing the large language models or small language models, or what is happening, with the tokens and so on. It
ChatGPT, or not ChatGPT, but Gen AI, has been around for quite some time. For 2014, somewhere around there. But it was never used with where ChatGPT changed the game was that they used such a large amount of data to train the model. The corpus that was the thing is like a lot of the stuff, and I think it's funny because we're going to like very general, but now we're seeing that the use cases are very specific. So now you're talking about small language models or reinforcement.
Well, most of the companies are actually using that, like many companies started using OpenAI, and now they say, no, I want to create my own language model. So then they hire consultants, or people who can implement it for them. And then they implement it with the documentation of the same place. Well, Jan, you and me, we have done something similar using RAGs and some time back. And I'm sure it was very different than now.
Yeah, but the fundamental is still similar. Yeah, and then there's two kind of RAG is retrieve information, right? You summarize stuff. If you wanted to be very specific as a lawyer or something, you do with a knowledge graph, or
True.
if you have the money, you can fine tune the one yourself, whichever you want. So, but I do think there's a trend at the moment. Everyone is having their own agent. Like Olama was able to run everything pretty quickly. I built for my daughter a teach me anything kind of page with a streamlet at the front end, and then Olama at the back end. You'd be able to pretty much quickly throw on something together, and then my computer isn't powerful. I think with a normal, like a normal a GPU, you can achieve quite a lot of stuff. To do those small models with a little bit.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally. I always say, guys, that, when people ask me, okay, which one is the best API, I always say, well, it depends on what you want to do. What do you want to accomplish? You know?
yeah, yeah. And then
Mm.
like it goes to even further, we can thinking about the fundamentals. When we program a function to do certain things, the cost, the kind of electric and compute power. And then, I,
100%.
yeah, I think in the future, it might be a, a, a time like LLM and Gen AI, those small models are to be so efficient, you don't need to code that function.
Mm.
You can just ask Gen AI to do this little thing, and then let's say you want a JSON output, and then right now it's still kind of to people who has no knowledge of coding. They can sell the SaaS platform they want. They created a lot of amazing things. But in the future, I would say there might be a point two of those paths will merge. Yeah, just feels like that way.
Well, GitHub actually has a kind of copilot for the coding that is suggesting, like along with whatever you upload or you are coding live, it is suggesting, the different things that you can do. And this was very helpful for software developers, you know, and I'm sure that it will actually get better and better in future. But this is exactly the same as it is happening with all the models, when you use more data and the agent is learning what is making the other person happy,
Mm.
as James said, then yes, of course, it's actually working much better. Guys, thank you so much. This one was a very interesting topic, and I really hope to see you in the next episode and keep talking about AI. Have a great one.
Thank you, everyone.